Hello and welcome back to the Sell Like You podcast with me, Harriet Meller. It's great to be back behind the microphone. It's been a little while, it's been a few weeks. I've been to the UK, it's now winter in Perth, and it always throws me off, and as well as everybody else, and everyone starts getting cranky and then flies to Bali. I've been in UK, it's been scorching there, and meeting up with some of our clients over in Manchester and London, which was really exciting. And we're just on the prep for heading over to the US in September as well to expand our services for lead development over there. So lots of exciting things happening over in the business and obviously what's happening over on the podcast. And today's episode is all about cold to closed. So I'm going to take you through a real life example of where we've booked meetings following events and what you can learn from that, whether you are looking at doing more events, whether you do a lot of events within your organization, or whether you're looking to do that or trying to figure out where's the best way to generate those leads. This episode is for you. Now, great events is great exposure. It's often a marketing metric, but we know that pipeline comes from great follow-up. Now, there's lots of stats that I've talked about before around 80% of trade show leads never get followed up. I think we've used 96%. I've talked about 27% of those leads are followed up by sales. There are so many that I can share, and they vary depending on the size of organization and the businesses that we have worked with to gather this type of data. And so I always bring you what's most relevant and what's most recent so we can keep ahead of the ever-evolving landscape that is sales, marketing, and certainly technology, cyber, and SaaS. Now, most teams miss the moment, the post-event moment. And what happens is if we think about we've met somebody, we've had that engagement, we've talked about something that's either personal or to do with that event, and then we've not spoken to them again. We've missed that moment to reconnect, to say, how was it? How were the drinks post-event? How was your flight back? Did you get caught in that storm? All of these things that make us great connectors and build great relationships, we start to dwindle on what we can actually use. And when I'm looking at leads to develop for our clients, and as we're developing our team, as we go to market for other organizations, we start to look at if an event was in the last 3 to 6 months, we can use it. If an event was beyond 6 months to a year, we are going to be we're going to consider how we're going to use that intel. We may not give the exact date. We may say last year. We may talk about a few months ago. We may say at the last event for. And if we have gone beyond that time frame of where we can use that reference, we will start to consider of when we first met, it was here, and this is what's changed or happened since. So there's so many different things we have to take into consideration when doing lead development and essentially following up on past leads or opportunities. And so we know where teams miss that post-event moment. We've got a lot of data on that decay and the follow-up failure and what happens, and essentially throwing money down the toilet aside to that brand awareness exercise. And so the real client example, which I said I would share today, is around a SaaS client that we've been doing lead development for. And in 1 month, we booked 17 meetings. Now, this was a 628% ROI on their investment for the lead development service. And it was from a really smart follow-up play. Now, not all accounts are made equal. Not every SaaS organization is the same. Not every technology or cyber organization is the same. So we need to understand the levers to pull and the landscape that we're working within. And so if we take the data that we know that most reps give up after 1 to 2 touches, and yet we know that it takes 7 to 15 touches to land a meeting, to convert that conversation into a discovery meeting, we're giving up way too soon. And so then when we attribute that to event spend, and if we look at event spends across the industry, we're looking at about 30% of marketing budget is spent on events, and they are expensive. So when we think about all the leads that we generate, and often we'll see the entire event list from everybody that booked to come to that, through to those that scanned at the booth, through to those that came to a session, through to those real ones that we've tagged hot lead and added loads of notes in, that 30% of marketing budget is still quite high when we look at it across the entire organization or across the year. And so the speed to lead gives you a massive edge. Our prospects are 21 times more likely to follow up if you follow up 5 to 10 days following event. 21 times more likely to convert in those 5 to 10 days following events. Now, often we see organizations take anywhere between kind of 10 to 20 days to get us that data. So we are already working with that data kind of within that realm, or maybe just on the cusp of that realm through to outside of that. And that's okay. If we look at the data that we're working with, we tend to find as long as we've got it within the kind of 2 to 6 week mark, we can have a really strong follow-up cadence. Anything outside of that, we start to look at them as being less warm, focusing more towards those cold, because even when we speak to people that have been maybe 2 to 3 months following events, they've been to so many events since, they have been to so many things, so much has changed in their organization in that time. I know it right now. I've been back, I think 3 or 4 weeks, and people say to me, how was your trip? And I say, where? Because it's so much has happened within that time. So we have to think we're all moving at this rapid pace. And so connecting back to the event is also something we want to be able to do easily without them having to say, oh, it was this event and we did this and we gave away this merchandise and this person was speaking. It's such a slog to try and get there, when if we could have done that earlier, we've got the ability to do it. Now, what we did in this case was, using this example where we booked these 17 meetings, was the SaaS client, a couple of things to note. They had brand clarity. They were extremely well positioned in the market, and they had great event presence. So they're able to really show up. And when we followed up with these leads, it was a lot of them knew who they were, and we were able to reference the merchandise given out that really helped them stand out from the crowd as well. We were able to follow up in a really timely manner. And as a SaaS provider, they had a single really strong offer. And what they came to us for was they weren't able to keep up with demand. They were seeing that there weren't enough follow-ups being made to be able to book in those demonstrations. And so the goal set initially was, we want to get 10 meetings per month, a mix between the efforts of what our team were doing and a mix between the efforts of what their team were doing. So if we split that out pretty evenly, we were looking about 5 meetings per organization per month based on the lead volume that we were given. Now, we booked 17 meetings. So we were 12 meetings above expectations, which is awesome. That's exactly what I like to see. And it's certainly what our clients like to see. It gave us a 628.6% return on investment for what they spent. And what we found, what worked, was we had a really entry-level offer. So it was tied to an ROI that the organizations that we were pitching or that we were prospecting could hit. They're in the fintech organization. So just to give you an idea of industry, we had a really clear call to action with really clear processes. Now, organizations don't have to be mature to have really great processes. But what we do find is that when it comes up against booking meetings, seeing availability, having value-driven collateral that we could share, and something a bit more interactive and fun. So these guys had an ROI calculator. It meant that we could do that on the phone with them. It meant it's something we could share with them. And we had a really clear go-to-market around the types of organizations, the types of businesses that we wanted to work with, and the valuation of their books required, again, as I mentioned, finance. Now, we had messaging built around the problem, the proof, and the promise, and that was generated from a Q&A session with their top, or the sales guy that leads their team. And so what that allows us to do is pull out the information that we need to be able to have a really strong conversation. Now, often when I speak to organizations, vendors, and anybody in this SaaS industry, they've got a clear idea of what their go-to-market messaging is. When we come in from a sales element, we've seen this before. We've seen what works. And so we can take their message, their story, their alignment, their examples, and pull it into messaging and conversations that will build traction for them. Now, what this organization has now done is they've then worked out, okay, well, now we're filling up calendars. They're also getting general, inbound and those marketing led leads that are coming through as well. They've hired somebody else, which is amazing. So now we can start to fill their diaries. And now we're hitting this kind of 2-week block of where they're completely full of meetings. Great problems to have as salespeople and as organizations that are looking to either validate, grow their pipeline, grow their conversation stack. And the key to what we found within lead development is that meetings are great. Don't get me wrong. We need meetings, discovery calls turn into opportunities, and they convert. So we do need those meetings. However, the kicker for me on every lead development engagement is the conversations that we get to have within the industry. And if you think about the call volumes, we're doing anywhere between 150 to 550 attempts. Of those, we see about a 50 to 60% connection rate. And we're having conversations with really great conversations within those that we can then start converting, either whether that be now or in the future. But imagine having 200, 300 people a month in your industry talking about you, talking about your technology, talking about your services and solutions and outcomes. And then imagine tying that in with a marketing-led campaign, which is all run by their organization, utilizing LinkedIn, utilizing email, partnering with people in the industry. All of this accumulates so that when we start doing our touch point 2 and 3 and 4, combined, we're doing a great effort across all verticals within the within that industry and on behalf of that organization. Now, a great event lead is still a warm door. It's still somebody that we can engage, whether it be now, whether it be in the future. And so when we are preparing the framework for our lead development clients, something that we always want to drive into or really understand is example use cases. So we look at what has worked for them, what messaging is cutting through. Is AI just kind of in there with the noise at the moment, or is it something we can really draw on? In the conversations, when we use a certain word, is that piquing somebody's interest? If we hear another competitor word, is that clear, flag over here to go wild and really explain a bit more about what you do because you win every time? All of this intel allows us to pull it together, and we pull that into what we call the LDR prompt. Now, the LDR prompt is something that I think every organization should have, and it doesn't need to be called the LDR prompt, but I would call it the follow-up prompt or the SDR prompt or the outreach prompt. And it's bringing together the information that you need to have a strong conversation. And it shouldn't be that long. It should be very succinct. In a sentence or two, what does this technology bring or do, or service bring or do? What's the outcome? What's an example story? What language is connecting? All of this allows us to build this great collateral and then enable and support our teams in delivering the best communication and messaging and be able to follow through with those conversations rather than jumping straight into where are they at, when will they need this solution, and when can we talk again? Because every salesperson is driven towards their target. They're driven towards what can they achieve in this week, this month, this quarter against their target. When they know where that lands, they know what commission they're taking home. So if we flip it around, we can actually see the difference between someone that drives hard towards an outcome, gets very different results to those that are continuously touching base and nurturing and reconnecting with leads that are 6 months old, that are 1 year old, that are 18 months old. And this is why our service exists today, because most salespeople don't look at the opportunity around nurture. And nurture is something I've always done. It's how I've always run my sales outreaches, and it's how I still do it today. We are still converting clients that have been talking to us for the last 18 to 24 months. It is not necessarily always a quick decision. It's not necessarily something we can convert that week or that month. But if we miss a month or we miss a couple of months, or we said we'd call back at the end of quarter and we don't, we're missing the mark. And we see so much of that in this development. And so most team misses, that follow-up, that agreement to follow up. And there's no system for that handoff or that reconnection or lack of collateral that's relevant to the people that they are speaking to. And so most follow-up dies in two places. It follows up when we've spoken to them once and there's no real opportunity there right now. We miss the mark. We miss the mark of follow-up when we're too busy and there's all these event leads going on and we just take the top 20%. Nothing really happens with the next one. And so the mistake that often I see being made is we need more events, we need more leads, we need to run more campaigns. No, you just need better follow-up. And whether that be within your team or whether you're working with a partner, take what you're already doing, turn it into a system and build pipeline. Focus heavily on value. Focus on every single lead generated through every single dollar that you have spent, because we don't want to waste anything. And so a couple of things I would suggest that you can try to really start looking at building towards this ROI. As we mentioned, 628% on ROI in 1 month of working with us. And that's massive. It's been incredible for us to see. It's incredible for the team to really see what they can do when put into practice. But it's great for our clients to really see what is possible, because lead generation is different to lead development. And so rather than trying to do more of what you're already doing, focus on what you already have. It's our number one way of starting any training is we focus on Reignite. Reignite is essentially lead development, but just a bit further down the line. And so whether you need to take the LDR Prompt example and bring that in, maybe you want to do an audit and look at your last event, whether this is you as a salesperson and you can go back in and pull off these reports, or whether it's you as a marketing, a CMO, and looking at who's been followed up and how fast and what happened. There's so many systems out there that can track intrinsically what your team are doing. I know HubSpot do it, Salesforce, Pipedrive have got some great capability, but there is so much out there that can give you that intel and that insight. And so before we start looking at whether an event was worthwhile, did we actually execute from start to finish what that event needed and what we needed to do to make the most of it? And so if you want help building this and want to find out more about how we do this, I would love to chat to you. I'll pop my details in the show notes. But if not, take something from this event. If you're not quite ready for us, or if you've got a fantastic team that maybe just need pointing in the right direction, grab this podcast, share it with them, consider how you can leverage that. And I hope that this helps you move the needle on your next event or utilize past leads so that you can bring them to the forefront.